Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I had never been the kind of person to shop at dollar stores. Not because I thought I was too good for them or anything like that, but more because I just never lived close to one growing up. My parents were the kind of people who always bought the same brands and used coupons. They did all their shopping at places like Kroger or Target. That habit stuck with me as I got older. So by the time I was in my mid-20s and living alone in a small apartment in a working-class part of Charleston, South Carolina, dollar stores just weren't part of my daily routine. But I was broke. I'd just switched jobs, left a company call, sent a job that was making me miserable, and started working nights at a shipping warehouse. The pay was better, but working different hours messed up my body badly. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in weeks, and my brain felt like mush. Most days, rent was due, and every dollar mattered. That's how I ended up at a place called Dollar Zone one Tuesday night. It was late March. It was still cold at night, and I remember how quiet everything felt when I pulled into the almost empty parking lot. The streetlights buzzed overhead. There was a gas station nearby, mostly empty, and one of those cheap motels behind it that always had curtains closed and a steady stream of strangers coming and going. I needed trash bags, paper towels, and a new phone charger. My last one sparked and died the night before. I figured I'd try Dollar Zone and see how much money I could save. Plus, part of me was just curious. The store was older, small, and had those bright white lights. A woman behind the counter didn't even look up as I walked in. There were no other customers that I could see, just me and her, at least at first. I grabbed a little red basket and started going up and down the aisles. The products weren't name brands. Some had strange foreign labels or fake logos that looked almost but not quite right. The kind of stuff that makes you look twice and laugh a little, like fake Dawn dish soap or fake Swiffer pads. Still, I could feel myself adding up the money I would save in my head, telling myself it was worth it. I was in the second aisle looking at cleaning supplies when I first felt her. I hadn't heard her walk up. I didn't even look at her at first. But there was this weird heavy feeling in the air, like when someone's watching you and you just know. It was the stillness that made me notice her, like something in the energy of the space changed. I kept looking at the shelf, pretending to compare sponges or whatever, but I could feel her just standing there. After a few seconds, I moved on. Turned into the next aisle. Kitchen stuff, maybe. And that's when I finally looked over my shoulder. She was there again. A short woman, maybe in her 40s. Thick, dark hair with a lot of volume like it had been teased or curled. Her clothes didn't match well. A floral top, jeans too big at the waist, and cheap white sneakers. Her eyes were deep set, and something about them made my stomach feel tight. I gave a quick half smile, the way women sometimes do when we're trying not to upset someone that gives us a weird feeling, and I turned away. She didn't smile back. I moved to another aisle. She followed. This continued for at least 5 more minutes. Every time I changed aisles, she ended up near me, never directly behind, never too close, but always where I could see her. At first, I thought maybe she was just shopping the same aisles, but it started to feel planned, like she was doing it on purpose. I started not looking at her. I pretended to be on my phone. I gripped the plastic handle of my basket tighter. Each time I turned and saw her a few feet away, still watching. Then something happened that made my blood run cold. As I turned into the frozen food section near the back, I heard her say something. Soft, mumbled, but loud enough to hear the words, "You smell like my daughter." I froze in place. I wasn't sure I heard it right. I turned halfway, pretending, to look at the freezer door, and saw her again, just standing there, not looking at the food, just looking at me. That's when I noticed something strange about her eyes. They were wide, too wide, like she hadn't blinked in a long time. Her pupils looked huge, not normal, like she was on drugs. My heart started racing. I didn't say anything. I just walked away, leaving the freezer aisle and heading toward the front. I went to the checkout counter, dumped my basket, and tried to act normal. The cashier was a young guy, maybe 18 or 19. He gave me a nod, rang up my stuff quickly, and bagged it without saying anything. The woman didn't come to the front. I paid, said a quick thanks, and left. The parking lot was even quieter now. A light wind picked up. I walked to my car quickly, unlocked it, and loaded my things into the back seat. I got in, shut the door, and locked it right away. Then I saw it. A dusty silver car parked near the edge of the lot about 50 feet away. I hadn't noticed it when I arrived. Maybe it had just pulled in. Maybe it had been there the whole time. Either way, when I turned the key to start my car, the silver car's headlights turned on. I froze. The car started moving slowly at first, then a little faster. I stayed in reverse, ready to back out once it passed, but it didn't pass. Instead, it turned toward me, and then it hit me. Not hard, but enough to shake the car and slam my body against the seat. I screamed. The silver car backed up a few feet. That's when I saw her behind the wheel. It was her, the woman from the store, and she was laughing. A strange, dry laugh, mouth wide open, eyes huge. And then, without warning, she drove out of the parking lot fast and disappeared down the street. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called 911. The police showed up 20 minutes later. I gave them everything I knew, what the car looked like, what the woman looked like, and the fact that she had been following me inside the store. They took my statement, but didn't seem like they could do much. Later, I got a call saying the car wasn't even hers. It was owned by a man who lived at that rundown motel behind the gas station. The woman had stolen it, but he hadn't reported it because, as the officer put it, they were close. The story that came out afterward chilled me to my core. Her name was Rosalind Baines, a former school teacher who had become a sex worker. She'd gotten into bad drug problems after a bad divorce and had been staying at that motel for months. The man who owned the car was her boyfriend, or maybe her pimp, depending on who you asked. The officer told me privately that Rosalind had a history of strange behavior, including another time where she followed a young girl through a CVS and tried to convince her that she was her missing daughter. The girl was a complete stranger. The cops found Rosalind 3 days later, walking near the highway barefoot and talking to herself. She was taken to a mental health facility, but they didn't charge her for hitting my car because the car's owner refused to press charges. He didn't want to be involved. They said I never saw her again. But for months after, I'd lie awake at night, wondering what would have happened if I hadn't left the store when I did. If I'd talked to her, if I'd made eye contact, what did she want? Did she think I was her daughter or someone else? Was she planning to hurt me? Or was I just the unlucky person that a confused mind high on who knows what focused on? I'll never know. But I've never stepped foot in a dollar zone or any dollar store again. And I never will. I never expected anything interesting to happen while working at a dollar store. That was kind of the good thing about it. Back in 2014, I was in a tough place with money. I had dropped out of community college halfway through my second year because I couldn't afford both school and rent. I just moved into a cheap rundown apartment in a town called Redfield in upstate New York. It was one of those places where the air always smelled like old wood and diesel fuel, and where everyone either knew each other or didn't care enough to ask. I got a part-time job at the local Dollar Tree a couple blocks away. It wasn't great, but it was a job, minimum wage, long hours on my feet, customers who treated me like I wasn't there. I didn't complain. I just needed to hold on until I could save enough money for something better. Most of the time, I worked the closing shift alone. It wasn't as bad as it sounds. We were open until 10 p.m. and the store was small, just 10 aisles total. A little back room for storage, and one of those sad little break rooms with a microwave that made everything taste like cardboard. Evenings were usually dead after about 8:30. It gave me time to put things back on shelves, clean up, and then wait out the final hour at the front counter. Quiet was fine by me. But one night I still think about it. Even now, years later, quiet became scary. It was a Thursday. I remember because it had been cloudy all day, and the weather was strangely warm for October. The kind of sticky, muggy warm that feels like it shouldn't be there, like the air itself didn't want to be touched. I was scheduled to work 3 p.m. to close. It had been a completely normal shift. The usual crowd came in after school. Kids buying candy, teenagers trying to act cool, older ladies stocking up on off-brand paper towels. By the time it hit 9:30, I hadn't seen a customer in almost 20 minutes. I was sitting behind the counter playing a game on my phone. I always kept the volume low just in case someone walked in. That night, I was deep into one of those time-killer games, match 3 puzzles or something. I was zoning out hard, barely even blinking. Then I heard a noise, a clatter. It came from somewhere in the middle of the store, loud enough to snap me out of my game. I paused and sat up straighter, listening. It sounded like something had fallen. A single object, maybe a plastic bin or a stack of paper plates. I looked up toward the aisles, but the way the store was set up, I couldn't see more than the first few sections from where I was. I hesitated. I wasn't scared at that point, more curious, maybe slightly annoyed. Things fell sometimes. Shelves were cheap and the workers didn't always line stuff up right. It happened. Still, I stayed put. I was comfortable, and I figured I'd clean it up when I was getting ready to close. About 3 minutes later, another sound. Thump, louder this time. I jumped a little in my chair and stared toward the back of the store. This time, it sounded heavier. I squinted, trying to see if anyone had walked in. The bell above the front door was loud, and I hadn't heard it. Then, something in my chest tightened. There was no one in the store. I was sure of it. I'd seen the last customer leave 10 minutes before. The front door never opened again. I would have heard it. I would have felt it. That's when I started to feel weird. The quiet suddenly felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. I set my phone down and stood up. My sneakers squeaked. Slightly on the floor, I slowly moved out from behind the counter and toward the aisles. "Hello," I called, my voice sounding small and thin against the bright lights. Nothing, no footsteps, no reply. I walked slowly toward where I thought the sound had come from aisle 6, maybe 7, plastic goods and canned food. My heart was beating a little faster than it should have. I didn't know why I was nervous. Maybe it was just the stillness or the feeling of being watched. When I turned into aisle 7, I saw it. 2 items had fallen to the floor. Some kind of aluminum foil trays and a package of holiday napkins. Not heavy, but not the kind of thing to fall by themselves unless someone had touched them. I stared at them for a long moment. Then I bent down, picked them up, and looked around. The shelves were full but neat. Nothing else looked messed up. I placed the items back in their spot, straightened a crooked row of plastic forks, and stood. Still again, something didn't feel right. I couldn't shake it. That sense of not being alone. I turned back toward the front. Then I heard it again. Another crash. This time from the opposite end of the store. Loud, something hard and plastic. Probably aisle 2 or 3. The toy section. I froze in place. My mouth went dry and I felt goosebumps crawl up my arms. Is someone in here? I called again. A little louder now. I could hear my own breathing. No answer. I knew I had to check. Even if it was just a kid messing around or someone who slipped past the entrance bell, I had to look. I was technically responsible. I made my way across the store, trying to move quietly. When I reached aisle 2, I stopped cold. There in the middle of the aisle was a toy truck, bright red, flipped upside down, and behind it, a stuffed animal had been thrown off the shelf. A small unicorn, its eye missing. I stood still for a long time, trying to understand what I was looking at. Then I heard something that turned my blood to ice. Footsteps, light, quick, deliberate, running, but not toward me. Away, toward the front of the store, toward the register. I turned and ran back the way I came. My shoes slapped against the floor. I rounded the end of the front aisle and stopped short. There was a man standing behind the checkout counter. My checkout counter. He had one knee up on the small counter shelf and both hands on the register. I watched frozen as he tried to yank it open. Hard, quick pulls. It didn't open, thank God. I had locked it earlier, out of habit. The man looked up and saw me. We locked eyes. He didn't say a word, just turned back to the drawer and started slamming his hand against it. He banged the side, trying to knock it loose, then grabbed underneath and started trying to pick the whole machine up. My voice finally came back to me. Hey, stop. I'm calling the cops. The man didn't flinch. He jumped down, ran to the second register, and tried that one, too. Locked. I always kept them all locked if they hadn't been used. I'm calling, I yelled again, backing toward the office door where the landline was. But I fumbled in my pocket for my phone. My hands were shaking. The man gave up. He threw something small, maybe a pen, then ran straight through the front door. The bell rang as he yanked it open and disappeared into the night. I ran to the door and immediately turned the lock. I didn't care that we still had 15 minutes before closing. We were done. I stood there, staring out the glass window, trying to steady my breathing. The parking lot was dark. A single flickering light lit up part of the sidewalk, but I didn't see where he went. I called 911. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. I walked them through everything. They took a look around the store, asked for the security camera footage, which I wasn't allowed to give them, but said the manager would follow up the next morning and wrote up a report. The man was never found. He never came back, as far as I know. I didn't sleep that night or the next. The worst part wasn't that he tried to steal from us. The worst part was that I never knew he was there. He must have been hiding somewhere. In the store, before we even closed. Maybe crouched between two shelves. Maybe hiding in the stockroom when I wasn't looking. He was silent, patient, and he waited. That still haunts me. How close he was the entire time. How well he hid, and how I never even saw him until he wanted me to. I quit a few weeks later. I told them it was because I found something closer to home. But the truth was, I didn't feel safe anymore. Not in that building, not alone at night. Sometimes when I walk past a Dollar Tree now, even in broad daylight, I feel that same chill creep over me. And I remember the quiet, the unnatural waiting kind of quiet. The kind that hides something that's not quite gone. I wasn't someone who went to Dollar Tree very often, not because I thought I was above it or anything like that. It just wasn't part of my usual routine. But that changed after I moved into a small rental duplex in a new part of town, tucked behind a highway ramp and sandwiched between an old laundromat and a chain of fast food places. Rent was cheap, and so were the neighbors, the kind of people who minded their own business unless you parked in their spot, and then you'd hear about it. Usually with a passive-aggressive sticky note or two. It was a Tuesday evening when I decided to finally check out the Dollar Tree a few blocks away. I'd just gotten back from work, and the thought of driving to a big box store felt exhausting. I needed groceries, paper towels, and maybe a new plastic bin for my closet. So I figured, why not? It was already dark outside, not late, probably around 8:45 p.m., but the winter skies made everything feel like midnight. I remember putting on my hoodie and grabbing a canvas tote, feeling a little too tired for the errand, but needing to go through with it. The Dollar Tree parking lot was mostly empty, maybe 4 or 5 cars scattered throughout. The overhead lamps buzzed faintly, casting long shadows that seemed to move even when nothing else did. I parked close to the entrance. A big yellow sign buzzed above. Dollar Tree, everything's $1.25. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed how quiet it was. The only sounds were the distant hum of freezers and the faint murmur of some low-energy pop song playing through broken ceiling speakers. An older man stood at the register, flipping through a flyer, and a bored-looking teenage girl leaned against the side of a display of Valentine's candy. She smiled at me when I walked in, more out of routine than interest, and I nodded back. I grabbed a green cart with a wobbly front wheel and started walking through the aisles. There were maybe 3 other shoppers inside. One woman with a crying toddler near the school supplies. A guy who looked like a mechanic covered in grease, grabbing off-brand soda. And a third woman I noticed almost immediately, mainly because she gave me a strange feeling from the start. She was tall, probably in her late 30s, wearing a faded jean jacket and a red beanie. Her expression was unreadable, like she was constantly thinking about something just out of reach. She hung around in the toy aisle for a long time, pretending to look at shelves, but clearly looking at something else or someone else. I made a mental note of her, then moved on. I was in the back corner of the store, near the freezer section, when I noticed her again. She wasn't shopping. She was watching, not just casually looking at people. Watching like she was keeping track of everyone's movements. I'd seen enough weird stuff working late shifts in random jobs to know what that kind of behavior usually meant. Either she was looking around the place to steal something, or she was looking for someone specific. Still, I wasn't about to jump to conclusions. I grabbed a frozen pizza and a bag of mixed vegetables and wheeled my cart around the next aisle. That's when I heard a weird thump. I paused, It had come from behind me back near the coolers. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't the normal noise you'd expect inside a store either. I turned back. That's when I saw her. She was climbing. No joke. She had both hands on top of one of the tall freezers and was pulling herself up like it was the edge of a swimming pool. Her foot slipped on one of the lower racks and sent a few cans rolling across the floor. She didn't seem to care. I blinked, confused. What the hell is she doing? I whispered out loud. She made it all the way up and disappeared into the gap between the top of the freezer and the ceiling. That's when I realized she wasn't just climbing, she was hiding. "Excuse me?" I called out, unsure why. Maybe I thought she'd been confused or unstable. She didn't answer. Instead, her head popped out over the freezer edge, and her eyes locked onto mine. Wide, wild, unblinking. "What are you doing up there?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Just needed a second," she mumbled. Her voice was low but rough, like she hadn't spoken in hours. Other people were starting to notice. The mum with the kid pulled her child closer. The guy in the soda aisle stopped what he was doing and leaned out to look. Then it happened. The woman, without any warning, stood upright on the freezer, walked 3 or 4 steps, and jumped. She landed in my cart, actually, onto my cart. The whole thing collapsed under her. The sound it made was like metal snapping in slow motion. My groceries spilled everywhere. Cans rolled, boxes tore open, frozen peas scattered across the tile. I stumbled back in shock, hands out. "Are you serious right now?" She didn't even flinch. She stood up, brushed her pants off, and looked right at me. "Wrong cart," she said, almost amused. "What is wrong with you?" I snapped. She didn't answer, just turned and jogged away like nothing happened. The store erupted into whispers and murmurs. A few people laughed nervously. Others just stood in stunned silence. One of the workers, a stocky guy in a green apron, ran after her, shouting, "Ma'am, you cannot be doing that." She didn't stop. She ran to the front of the store, shoved the door open, and disappeared into the dark. I knelt down and started collecting my stuff. The cashier from the front came over to help, visibly shaken. "She's been in here before," he mumbled. "Always weird, always talking to herself." "Does she do that every time?" I asked, trying to laugh, but not really feeling it. "Not that," he said, nodding toward my broken cart. "That's new." I bought what I could salvage and checked out. As I left, I looked toward the parking lot, half expecting to see her lurking near the exit, but she was gone. I headed to the gas station nearby. My tank was low, and I figured it'd be good to fill up before heading home. The whole incident was still replaying in my head. The stare, the jump, the absolute nerve of it. I pulled into the station, filled up, and went inside to grab a drink. That's when I saw a familiar face again. Her, she was standing near the beer fridge, going through her pockets with that same dazed, wild expression. I quietly backed out before she could see me and drove off fast. I didn't want to push my luck. I was 5 minutes from home when I noticed the flashing lights, police cars, a lot of them. I slowed down, unsure of what was happening. One cop motioned for me to pull off to the side, so I did. Up ahead, I saw another officer laying out a set of spike strips across the road. What the hell? Behind me, sirens, and then a blur of movement. A car shot past me, nearly hitting my bumper. Same car I saw her get into earlier. She was driving like crazy. The cops reacted instantly. The car hit the spikes, tires shredded, and the vehicle fishtailed across the road, skidding into a ditch. I watched, heart hammering, as officers swarmed it. They pulled her out. She fought at first, clawing, screaming, but they got her under control fast. Her red beanie fell to the ground, and her wild hair spilled out like black ink. It was her. It was definitely her. Later that week, I saw the story on the news. Her name was Angela Ditt, 39. Multiple warrants, petty theft, assault, breaking and entering. She'd escaped from a mental health facility 2 towns over a month earlier. They'd been looking for her ever since. She'd been living in abandoned houses, sometimes living out of her car. She hit several small stores that week, stealing food, clothes, medicine. I guess Dollar Tree was just the latest stop. I don't shop late anymore. It's not that I'm afraid. Not exactly. It's that I saw something in her eyes that night. Something unhinged, but also desperate. Something that said, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't care what I do. That's a scary kind of person. Someone with nothing to lose. She didn't just jump on a cart. She jumped into the part of my brain that doesn't stop replaying weird, surreal, dangerous things. So yeah, I still go to Dollar Tree. But not alone, and never ever at night. I never thought working a minimum wage retail job could be dangerous. Inconvenient, yes. Boring, absolutely. But life-threatening. That wasn't something I expected when I took the night shift at Dollar Haven, a small off-brand dollar store tucked behind a worn-down gas station on the edge of Lenora, Kansas. Back then, I was 22. My name, at least for this story, is Madison. I had moved to Lenora to live with my aunt after my mum passed away unexpectedly from a stroke. I was broke, emotionally wrecked, and just trying to rebuild. Aunt Tina didn't have much, but she gave me a room in her trailer and let me stay rent-free if I helped with groceries. So, when Dollar Haven called me in for a night shift cashier position, I took it without hesitation. The store was understaffed, like most small town places. After a couple of weeks, I was working alone for 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. I'd clock in around 4:30 p.m., clean and stock for a bit, and then work the register until 10 when we closed. After that, I'd sweep, restock, and count the money alone until I locked up at 10:45. The job was simple, the people, not always. It started one night in early November. The air had that dry, sharp bite, and the store's heater clicked constantly like it was dying. I was halfway through my shift when a man walked in. Average height, mid-30s, tan work jacket, facial hair that was almost a beard. His eyes, I don't know how else to put it, they didn't blink enough. I looked up, said the usual, "Hi, welcome in," and got a weird pause in return. He didn't say anything, just looked around almost too slowly, like he was memorizing everything. Then he disappeared into aisle 5. I brushed it off. Weird people were part of the job. But I noticed that he wasn't grabbing anything, just walking up and down the aisles, barely touching products. 15 minutes later, he finally came to the counter with 2 energy drinks and a phone charger. He didn't put them down right away. "You work here every night?" he asked like it was casual. "Most nights," I said, scanning the drinks. "You live around here?" I paused. Sort of." "You need a bag." He leaned in a little. "You got a boyfriend, right?" There, my stomach turned. I smiled, tight. "I'm just trying to finish my shift." He didn't take the hint. "You should let me take you out after you're off. I'll wait." I shook my head. "No thanks." "You sure?" I got a real nice truck. That weird grin again. I handed him his change and receipt, praying he'd leave. He didn't. He lingered for another 30 seconds, watching me. Finally, when another customer walked in behind him, he turned and left. No goodbye, just gone. I thought that was it, just a creep hitting on the cashier. It happens more than you'd think. About an hour before closing, the door chimed again. I looked up and my heart sank. It was him, same jacket, same dead-eyed stare. This time, he didn't even pretend to shop. He walked straight up to the counter. "You off work yet?" he asked, like we were old friends. "No," I said, forcing a firm tone. He glanced around. "I'll wait. Can't be long now." There were 2 teenage girls in the snack aisle. I felt braver with witnesses. "Listen, I'm not interested. Please stop hanging around. You need to leave now." His expression didn't change. "You'll change your mind. I always get what I want." Then, just like that, he walked out calmly. No argument. But as he pushed the door open, he added, "I'll find out more about you." My blood turned cold. 3 nights later, he came back again. It was a Wednesday, slow and dead. He walked in with confidence, strolled right up to the counter, and said, "Hello, Madison Reed." He said it with a grin, like he was enjoying a private joke. I didn't wear a name tag. I never had. Management didn't care. I'd even checked to make sure my last name wasn't on anything visible around the register. "How do you know my name?" I asked. "I have friends. They know things. Small town." He winked and turned to leave. That was it. No purchase, no attempt to flirt, just that name drop. It rattled me. After he left, I went into the back room and locked the door, heart pounding. I called the store manager, April, but she brushed it off. "He's probably just bluffing," she said. "Just keep an eye out. I'll file a note about it, but unless he does something, we can't do much." I started walking to my car with a box cutter in my jacket pocket. That Friday, after a normal shift, I drove home. Aunt Tina was working nights at the diner, so the trailer was dark and quiet when I got in. I made some noodles, watched a bit of TV, and around midnight, just as I was starting to doze off, someone knocked. Not a light knock, a hard, slow thump. I froze. I peeked out the front blinds and my stomach dropped. He was standing on the porch. He knocked again, then tried the handle. The screen door creaked open. The main door held. "Madison, I know you're home," he said through the wood. I didn't answer. I backed away and grabbed my phone, hands shaking. As I dialed 911, he kept talking. "You shouldn't be alone. Not this late. I saw your aunt leave earlier." That made it worse. He knew where I lived and when my aunt worked. "Please send someone," I told the dispatcher. "He's trying to get in." The longest 10 minutes of my life passed with him just standing there. The only thing between us was a flimsy door lock. Finally, red and blue lights cut through the dark. He didn't run, didn't protest, just stood there with that same grin. The cops told him to leave. Said he wasn't doing anything technically illegal. They gave him a trespass warning. That was it. But at least I didn't see him for a while. Weeks passed. I stopped working, closing shifts, asked April to switch me to afternoons. She agreed, but the story doesn't end there. One afternoon, I heard a regular customer, Miss Carla, talking quietly near the greeting cards. She was whispering with her daughter. She said, "You hear about that girl from Hutchinson? That poor girl got grabbed while walking home." The police say she worked nights at that small gas station off Route 3. That name made me stop. I knew the girl, Lexi. She worked a few towns away. We had trained together once at a sister store, 22, just like me. I asked what happened. They found her in the back of a trailer 2 days later. They said the man kept her tied up. They thought she was a prostitute or something. God help her. That's when I remembered. A week before Lexi went missing, she told me about a man who kept coming to her job and asking strange questions. He told her she looked like someone he used to pay. She thought he was confusing her with someone else. Then I wondered, maybe he confused me too. I started looking into it. I checked Facebook, deleted anything with my last name, and changed my privacy settings. I found a photo where Lexi and I were both tagged from months ago. It was a picture of us with our arms around each other at a work party. Both our names were there. I realized if someone saw that and knew we were connected and liked girls who looked like Lexi, it was not a random thing. I went to the sheriff and told them everything. The visits, the man saying my name, the knock on my door. They took me seriously this time, especially after hearing about Lexi. They said a man named Curtis Leland was a suspect in many harassment cases. Nothing was proven before, but the pattern was clear. They looked for him. They found him living in a camper on some land 10 miles out of town. Inside, there was a wall with photos of women, including me, Lexi, and others I didn't know. He had printed pictures from social media and wrote notes under them. Some notes had addresses. They found zip ties, duct tape, and a burner phone. Lexi's case was still open, but she said it was the same man who took her. Curtis is now in jail. He is waiting for trial for kidnapping, harassment, and stalking. I quit Dollar Haven 2 weeks later, moved out of Antas, and left Lenora completely. I changed my phone number and started over. I never knew exactly why he picked me. Maybe he confused me for someone else, or maybe I was just another name on his list. It does not matter. What matters is he watched me, followed me, and I survived. But I think about what would have happened if I hadn't locked my door that night. If I had walked to my car 5 minutes later. If Lexi hadn't been found alive. There are bad people out there, and sometimes they look normal. They wear Carhartt jackets and buy energy drinks. I didn't always live alone, but after moving out of my sister's house last winter, I finally had my own 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet town called Marrow Creek. It was not a big place, just a few stoplights, some fast food places, and one of everything else. 1 gas station, 1 laundromat, and 1 Dollar Tree between a hardware store and an old video rental store that was closed. It was nothing special, but rent was cheap, and I liked being independent. I was only a 10-minute walk from Dollar Tree, and I went there if I needed small things like dish soap, snacks, or paper towels. I went there enough to know the aisles well. This story happened not long ago. I don't like to talk about it much, because it made me question how safe I thought I was. It made me see that no matter how quiet or safe a town seems, one person can change everything. It started on a normal afternoon. It was about 3:30 p.m., bright, breezy, and not too hot. I just finished laundry and saw I was low on trash bags and dish soap. Instead of driving, I decided to walk. I had my earbuds in, but did not turn the volume up too high. I like to be aware of what is around me, especially when I walk alone. I walked down my street, cut across an empty parking lot behind the post office, and soon reached Dollar Tree. The store was maybe half full, quiet enough to not feel busy, but not empty enough to feel strange. I did not notice anyone special. Just a mum with 2 kids, a couple of teenagers arguing near the snack aisle, and an older man pacing near the cold drinks. I did not feel uneasy or watched. I grabbed what I needed, waited behind a lady using coupons, and paid with a few crumpled bills from my jacket pocket. Then I stepped outside, turned right, and started walking home the same way. It should have been normal. The air smelled like fresh grass and gasoline. Everything was so normal that I was only thinking about whether to make pasta or eat frozen pizza. I was about a block past Dollar Tree when I heard tires. A car pulled out from the parking lot, a white mid-size sedan. I did not think much at first, but then I saw it was moving slowly. At first, I thought the driver was trying to find the right way, but then I realized the car was matching my pace. I looked sideways, pretending to look at my phone, and saw the driver. A man, maybe in his late 30s or 40s, balding a little, wearing dark sunglasses and a grey hoodie. I did not know him at all. Then, he did something that made my heart stop. He rolled his window down. "Hey," he said sharply, not friendly or confused. "Director, get in." I blinked. I thought I misheard. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound calm. "Get in," he said again. "Hurry." No smile, no confusion. "No, sorry, I thought you were someone else," I said. He said, "Get in now." That was when I knew something was very wrong. My heart raced, but I stayed calm. I turned the corner at the next block, even though it was out of the way. The car stopped for a moment, then turned to. I walked faster. So did he. I heard his tires crunch behind me, like he was hunting me. I did not want to run yet. I did not want to show fear. I thought about which streets to take. I walked fast, then turned down a narrow alley between 2 brick buildings. It was just wide enough for a person or bike, but not a car. That was my chance. As soon as I turned in, I ran full speed. My breath caught, and my footsteps echoed on the walls. I did not stop until I got to the other side and looked out onto the street. No car. I waited 30 seconds, a minute, nothing. Breathing hard, I walked again. This time, I did not go back my usual way. I zigzagged through side streets, looking behind me often. Then, just when I felt safe again, I saw it. The white car, coming from the other end of the block. My heart jumped. He must have gone around, or waited, or guessed where I would come out. I could not believe it. He was still following me. I turned on instinct and ran toward a random house. No time to think. Ran across the grass, jumped a short wooden fence, and hid behind a bush in the side yard. I waited quietly. I saw the car drive slowly past the house, stop for a moment, then drive on. I stayed hidden until I could not see it. Then I ran again, cutting through another yard, across an alley, over another fence, and finally to a street. I knew my building was close now. When I got home, my hands shook as I fumbled with my keys and let myself in. The door locks automatically, so no one can get in without a key or someone letting them in. I ran up to the 3rd floor and locked every bolt behind me. Then I heard it again, a car engine. I looked out the window and saw the same white sedan idling across the street. The driver got out, looked up at the building, and walked to the front door. I froze. He pulled the handle. It did not open. He pulled again. Then, like nothing happened, he turned and walked back to his car and drove away. He did not run or panic. He just walked calmly. I do not know what he wanted. I do not know if he watched me in the store or if it was random. I do not know if he followed me home because he recognized me or guessed right. But I have not walked to Dollar Tree since. I changed my routines, started taking Ubers, and thought about moving. Every little sound outside my apartment makes my heart race. I never told anyone. What would I say? A man tried to get me into his car. There was no license plate, no name, no security cameras I knew of. All I know is something very real happened. I am lucky I trusted my feelings, because I think if I got in that car, I would not be here now. I was never the type to talk much at work. Maybe because of my job or just who I am. I worked in retail management most of my adult life. I ran a small logistics company in my 20s, but it closed during the recession. After that, I worked at many stores, big and small. Finally, I worked at a Family Dollar in a mid-sized town a few hours from where I grew up. It was not fancy, but it paid the rent. And for once, I did not have to run the whole store. That was a relief. I lived a few blocks from the store in a simple apartment complex. Nothing fancy. 2-story, brick building, creaky stairs, noisy neighbors sometimes, but cheap rent and close to work. I was in my early 40s, divorced, and mostly kept to myself. I did not drink or party. I liked quiet. The store was short-staffed, like most retail places. Usually 2 or 3 people worked each shift. One guy who worked with me often was named Chris. Chris was odd. A big, strong guy. Maybe in his mid-30s. He always wore a worn black hoodie with sleeves pulled halfway down over his hands. He looked like he never smiled. We were not friends. Not at all. He barely talked, and when he did, it was short and stiff. Sometimes I tried to talk a little, like slow night, huh? He would grunt or give a short answer and go back to work. At first, I thought he was shy or awkward. I let it go. We worked mostly in silence. He was a good worker, came on time, did not complain. That was enough for me until one night changed everything. That day was normal. I worked the evening shift with a younger girl named Tammy. She was bubbly and talked a lot. She did most of the registered work while I stocked and got the next day's freight ready. Chris was not on the schedule. I remember because Tammy said it was nice to have normal energy around. I laughed and agreed. It was a quiet shift. Few customers, mostly regulars. We closed at 9 p.m. I locked up quickly and walked back to my apartment. It was about a 10-minute walk through a neighborhood, past closed shops, then a shortcut down an alley behind an old laundromat. I liked walking at night. The air was cool and quiet, and it gave me time to think. By the time I got home, it was about 9:30. I put a frozen meal in the microwave, took off my shoes, and watched some TV reruns. I did not have to wake early, so I stayed up late. At midnight, I was still on the couch with dim lights, scrolling on my phone. Then I heard a knock. It was loud, sharp, and firm. I sat up fast. For a second, I thought I did not hear it right, but then it came again. 3 heavy knocks on the front door. It scared me. Nobody knocks at midnight unless it is an emergency. Thought maybe something happened to a neighbor or someone got locked out. I got up slowly and went to the door. I kept the chain on and looked through the peephole. What I saw froze me. Chris, he was standing right there, just staring at the door. Not knocking anymore, just standing. His hood was up, his face blank. Eyes straight ahead, not looking around, just still. I did not move. My heart beat fast, like when something feels very wrong, but your brain has not caught up. There was no reason for Chris to be there. He did not live in my building. I never told him where I lived. We barely talked outside work. I did not answer the door. I just watched through the peephole. He did not leave for a long time, just stood. Silently, the hallway light flickered once while he was there. It felt like a dream. One where someone is outside, and you don't know if they see you, but they won't leave. Finally, he left. No knock, no words. Just turned and walked down the hall and out of sight. I did not sleep much that night. The next morning, I went to work with only 5 hours of sleep. I told myself maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he had a strange, harmless reason to be there. Maybe a drunk cousin got lost. Weird coincidence. But when I saw Chris in the break room, my stomach twisted. He looked the same. Hoodie, blank face, no greeting. When the store was slow, I walked up to him and said casually, "Hey, were you at my apartment last night?" He looked at me with a dead stare. "What?" I said again slowly. "I saw you. You were outside my door around midnight." He shook his head. "Wasn't me." "Chris, I saw you. You stood there for like 5 minutes. I was home and didn't leave." He said it flatly, like reading from a script. Then he added, "Maybe it was someone who looked like me. Or maybe you were dreaming." That last part bothered me. He said it too smoothly, like he practiced it. I did not ask more. Something told me not to. After that day, I never worked with Chris again. A few shifts passed. His name disappeared. From the schedule, an assistant manager said he quit, but didn't say why. Nobody knew more. He was just gone. I wanted to tell someone what happened. I really did. But it felt stupid. What could I say? I think this guy came to my apartment without asking and then lied. There was no proof. Nothing happened. He didn't break in or hurt me. But it didn't feel right. Weeks passed. Life went back to normal, sort of. But I started locking my door more carefully. I kept a flashlight and a kitchen knife in the drawer next to my bed. I noticed small sounds at night more than before. Then, when I thought I was just being paranoid, it happened again. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise. Not a knock this time, just footsteps. Soft, slow, and deliberate outside my door. I got up quietly, heart pounding. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. But the next morning, I saw something new. A smudge on the peephole glass, like someone pressed their forehead against it. The next day, I bought a cheap security camera. It connected to my phone. I felt a little safer. Nothing showed on it for days. Then one night, I got a notification while at work. Motion detected. When I checked the video, my blood ran cold. The camera showed the hallway outside my apartment. It was empty. Then the camera glitched, static for less than a second, then came back. For that tiny moment, a single frame froze on my screen. Chris was standing in front of my door. I quit Family Dollar the next week. I didn't tell anyone why. I just said I was moving for personal reasons. I packed up, moved to a different town and state, and started over. It has been a year since then. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted. Sometimes I wonder if I didn't act fast enough. Every now and then, I still think I hear knocking. When I look through the peephole, I don't always feel alone. I never thought much about working at Dollar Tree. I took the job because I needed something flexible and close to home. This was a few years ago when I lived in a small apartment on Elmwood Street near Westview Avenue. The store was only 5 minutes from my apartment. I could walk, but most days I drove because I worked closing shifts and did not want to walk home in the dark. The Dollar Tree was nothing special. Just a small store in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax place that only opened during tax season. The lights inside always buzzed faintly, and the break room smelled like popcorn and bleach. We were always short-staffed. Most nights, only one person worked the register, and another worked in the back if there was one. My name's Tessa. By the way, I was 24 then, just trying to get by, living alone and dealing with lots of bills and not enough sleep. The job was simple, and honestly, I didn't mind it. You see all kinds of people at a place like that. But this story, this one night, stays with me more than anything else. It was late autumn, the kind of evening when the sun goes down too early, and by 5 p.m., it already looks like night outside. I was working alone, which wasn't strange. The manager, Paula, left after the shipment came in that morning, and no one else was working that evening. It was quiet, just a few customers coming in now and then. Around 4:30 p.m., I saw a man walk in. At first, nothing seemed strange about him. He had long, greasy brown hair tucked behind his ears and wore big sunglasses, even though it was already dark outside. I said hello, like I always do. "Hey, welcome in," I said. He didn't answer. He just walked past me and down an aisle. We get all kinds of people, quiet ones, loud ones, people who want to be left alone. I didn't think much of it. Soon after, a woman came to the register. She was buying some greeting cards and snacks. "Are you closing early today?" she asked. "Nope, just a quiet day," I said, scanning her things. "Feels weird how dark. It's getting, winter is coming." We talked a little, then she left. The man with sunglasses didn't come up to the counter until about 20 minutes later. He had one drink in his hand, some cheap energy drink from the cooler by the door. When he got to the counter, he didn't say a word. He just put the drink down and stared straight ahead. "Just this?" I asked. He nodded a little. "That'll be $1.25. He pulled out exact change from his jacket pocket. Coins, no wallet. Paid. Still no talking. I tried to give him the receipt, but he was already walking away. Weird, but not the weirdest. After he left, I saw him outside through the front window. He was just standing on the sidewalk in front of the store. People sometimes do that, waiting for rides or finishing phone calls, but he wasn't doing anything, just standing there. Over the next hour, I helped 4 or 5 more customers. I kept looking out the window, and he was still there, still standing. Once, I saw him turn his head and look right at the window. Right at me. By 7 p.m., the store was empty. That's when I started feeling scared. He hadn't left. He wasn't smoking, talking on the phone, or walking around, just standing. Every time I looked out, he was in the same spot. I thought about calling Paula, but what would I say? That some guy was standing outside. Instead, I called my coworker Jamie, who worked the night before. "Hey, weird question," I said. "Do you remember a guy with long hair and sunglasses coming in?" Jamie paused. No, but that sounds sketchy." "Why? He's been out front for almost 2 hours, not doing anything." Jamie sounded worried. "You're alone, right?" "Yeah, lock the doors at closing. Call me if anything weird happens." "Will do." By 9 p.m., it was time to close. I went to the door, locked it, and flipped the open sign to closed. As I did, I saw him look at me again. He was standing about 15 feet to the right. I grabbed my purse from under the counter and turned off the music on the small radio behind me. I did the usual closing work, counting cash, locking the register. Sweeping a little, I left by 9:15. When I stepped outside, my heart beat a little faster. I kept my keys in my hand and tried to walk fast without showing I was scared. He was still there, just standing. I walked past him to get to my car. I didn't look at him, but I felt his head turn. I got in, locked the door, and started the engine. I looked in the rearview mirror. He hadn't moved. Halfway home, I saw my gas tank was almost empty. I knew I wouldn't make it back or to work the next day without filling up. So, I stopped at a small gas station on Maple in 9th. It was one of those corner stations with old pumps, a flickering sign, and one worker behind bulletproof glass inside. I got out and started filling my tank. I tried to ignore the feeling that something was wrong. Probably just a weird guy, right? Then, about a minute later, a car pulled into the lot. It was a small blue sedan, beat up and missing its front passenger hubcap. It didn't go to a pump. It parked near the dumpsters. I looked at the driver. It was him, the man from the store. My breath caught. My hands shook a little as I held the gas pump. What was he doing here? Had he followed me? Was it a coincidence? I told myself maybe it was just a coincidence. This was a small town. The store and gas station weren't far apart. But he hadn't been driving when I left. He was on foot. So, when did he get in that car? When the gas tank clicked full, I put the nozzle back and got in my car. But I didn't leave. I sat there for a minute, watching him in my mirrors. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting in the driver's seat, watching the gas station. I decided to go inside, maybe get something to eat and calm my nerves. I walked in and went to the snack aisle. I picked up a sandwich and a soda. Then I heard the chime. He had come inside. My stomach dropped. I didn't even pretend to look around anymore. I put the sandwich back on the shelf and walked out. As I neared the door, I saw him turn. I walked faster. So did he. I got in my car and slammed the door. Locking it with my thumb, I started the engine and backed out smoothly. As I turned out of the lot, I saw him rush to his car. He got in. I made a hard right down Ashmont Street, a quiet neighborhood, and turned off my headlights. It was hard to see, but I kept driving slowly and carefully. 2 rights, then a left. No sign of him. I didn't go straight home. I drove around for 15 minutes before finally parking in my apartment's back lot. I sat in my car, engine off, heart pounding. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. Silence, no blue car. No sound but crickets and a street lamp humming nearby. After that night, I never saw him again. Not at the store, not around town. I never told anyone. I didn't know what to say. Some guy bought a drink, stood around, then maybe followed me. But something about him, his silence, the timing, the way he didn't buy anything at the gas station still haunts me. I told myself I was lucky because he could have done something and no one would have stopped him. To this day, whenever I see a small blue car in a parking lot, I hesitate. I check my rearview mirror more than most people because sometimes all it takes is one wrong night, one quiet man, and too much silence for something bad to happen. I never liked shopping late, but sometimes my schedule left me no choice. Last year, in the fall, I had just finished a photo shoot a few hours earlier. Nothing fancy, just catalog work for a regional clothing brand. I do freelance modeling sometimes, mostly lifestyle stuff. It's not a big career yet, but it helps pay my bills while I take online college classes. That day was long. My feet hurt. My makeup was smudged from being on set since 9 a.m., and I was starving. I realized I needed a few things: cotton pads, a new lighter, some cheap snacks, and cleaning spray. There's a place near my apartment, a small strip mall. With a few shops together, it's not the best area, but I know it. I thought I could stop by Dollar Village. It's like a knockoff of Dollar Tree. Same green signs. Similar layout. I'd only been there a couple of times, but it was open late, and I didn't want to go to a big store like Target with crowds or employees pretending not to see you. It was about 7:30 p.m. when I parked. The sky was that deep, bruised blue it gets in October, just before full dark. The air had a sharp bite to it. Not cold yet, but not summer anymore. The parking lot was almost empty. Just 3 or 4 cars. A rusty minivan was parked near the entrance, and a small white sedan a few spots down from mine. I didn't think much of it. I was tired and just wanted to get in and out. Inside, the store was quiet. Almost too quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. One speaker played faint elevator. Music that felt like it was inside your own head. I saw maybe 2 customers. Both middle-aged women buying Halloween decorations. One employee was behind the counter. A short man with dark hair and a little beard. He looked about my age, maybe late 20s. He wore a lime green Dollar Village vest over a long-sleeved shirt. I nodded politely when I walked in. He looked up from his phone and smiled a little too long. "Evening?" he said. "Hey," I said quickly and walked past him. I went down the aisles. Putting things in a cheap plastic basket I grabbed at the door. Cotton pads, cleaning wipes, a box of off-brand crackers. Nothing special. I was halfway through when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned slightly. It was the employee. "Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to startle you," he said, standing too close. I gave a quick, awkward smile. "No worries. You here alone?" he asked, eyes looking at my basket like it held secrets. "Yeah, just grabbing a few things," I said. He nodded but didn't move. "You a model?" That surprised me. I blinked. Double quotes, yeah, sometimes. "Knew it," he said. "You've got that face like you shouldn't be in a dollar store." I didn't answer. I just laughed weakly and turned away. He stayed a few seconds longer, then walked off. My skin crawled a little, but I told myself not to think too much. Maybe he was just awkwardly trying to be nice. I finished quickly and went to the front. He beat me there and was behind the register, standing straighter now. He didn't say anything when I came up, just started scanning my items. "Crackers, huh?" he said. "You don't look like someone who eats crackers." I smiled tightly. "I do." He raised an eyebrow like it was a mystery. "These are pretty gross. You sure you want them?" I nodded. "Yep." He kept scanning. "You live around here?" I paused. "Not really." He stared at me. "I feel like I've seen you before." "I've only been here once or twice," I said. He nodded slowly like he didn't believe me. "You should come more often. Liven up the place." I didn't answer. The beeps of the scanner filled the silence. When he finished, I paid in cash to make it. Quick, he gave me my change, then looked over his shoulder. "Well, now I'm off." He turned off the light above the register and stepped around the counter. I smiled politely. "Oh, cool. Have a good night." I started toward the door, but I heard his footsteps behind me, to close again. Where you headed after this? I tried to sound casual. Just home. He nodded and kept up with me. I was thinking of grabbing food. You hungry? I froze, but kept walking. No, I already ate. He smiled. What did I just say? I frowned. What? I said, I'm going to grab food. You coming or not? His tone changed, more aggressive, like he skipped steps in the talk. I don't even know you, I said, trying to stay calm. He laughed, like that was the dumbest thing ever. You don't have to know me, it's just food. I reached my car, I unlocked it and opened the door. Suddenly, he reached past me and pulled the door wider. Come on, he said, let's go. His hand brushed my arm. I jerked back. No. Back off, I said. But he stepped forward. I could feel him trying to get between me and the door. That's when my instincts kicked in. I didn't argue. I turned and ran. My boots hit the pavement fast as I ran from my car. I didn't think about screaming. I just focused on moving. I heard him yell something behind me and footsteps. He was chasing me. The strip mall was dark between stores, but I saw the red glowing sign of Max Mart at the far end. It was a discount store open until 9 p.m. I aimed for it like a lighthouse. I didn't look back, but I knew he was behind me. My bag hit my side. My keys dug into my hand. I reached Max Mart's automatic doors just as they opened for someone leaving. I rushed inside, out of breath, heart pounding. A man at the service desk looked surprised. Call the police, I gasped. Please, a man is following me. He tried to get into my car. The worker didn't hesitate. He picked up the phone and told me to stay put. I stayed near the carts by the door, looking outside, but the man was gone. No one outside. The parking lot looked the same, but felt scary now. The police came fast. Within 5 minutes, I walked them back to my car, which was safe. I told them everything. What he looked like, what he said, how he followed me and tried to get into my car. They asked if I would go back with them to Dollar Village. I agreed, the other worker inside, a woman I hadn't seen before, knew who I meant. That's Devon, she said. He just left. They took notes and started looking for him. He lived a few blocks away. They found him later that night. I don't know what they charged him with. I just know they found him. I filed a report. I got a lock bar for my steering wheel the next day. I stopped going to that strip mall. The worst part was thinking about when he touched the door. That split second, when he smiled like he had all the time in the world, like he thought I would go with him, like I didn't matter at all. He never yelled or raised his voice. He didn't need to. He thought he was in control. But I ran, and sometimes I dream that I don't. I never liked shopping at night, not because I thought something bad would happen, but because empty stores make me feel watched. You know what I mean? That strange quiet, the buzzing lights, and the echo of your footsteps down empty aisles. Still, I had no choice that night. It was one of those long days when everything went wrong. My shift at the vet clinic ran late. I skipped lunch to cover a co-worker's break. I realized halfway home I was out of laundry detergent, light bulbs, and other things. I didn't want to go to a big grocery store, so I stopped at the Green Spot Dollar Store on Barlow Street. It was close to my apartment, about a 10-minute walk, but I drove because it was after 8 p.m. and the July heat was still strong. The green spot felt like a time capsule. Old tile floors, mismatched shelves, and a strange lemon and mildew smell. I'd been there enough to know the employees by face, if not name. It was never crowded, that was the best part. That night, a few people were inside, 2 teens whispering near snacks, a middle-aged woman with a cart full of canned goods, and an older man quietly looking near the seasonal aisle. I grabbed a faded plastic basket and started down the toiletries aisle, checking my list. That's when I saw him. He wasn't there when I came in. I would have noticed he zoomed past me. Bumping my basket with his, I flinched. He muttered sorry, but didn't stop. He kept moving like he was in a race. He had a buzzed haircut, maybe early 30s or younger, but rough looking. His jeans sagged. His t-shirt had holes under the sleeves. What stood out was his mismatched flip-flops with no shoes, just dirty grey socks and cheap foam sandals from gas stations. I watched him turn the corner fast. I thought, maybe he was in a hurry to check out or close before a ride came. I let it go. I didn't think much until I saw him again a minute later, still moving fast, stuffing random things into his basket like a game show. Then something changed. He turned into my aisle and made eye contact. "Hey," he said loud, "can you pay for this stuff for me?" He held up his basket like a prize. It was full of random things: chips, batteries, spray, deodorant, socks in plastic, toothbrush, and other things that didn't make sense together. I blinked. No, sorry." His face didn't change. No anger, no sadness, just still. Then he turned and walked away, saying nothing. I heard him ask the same question to someone else. I didn't hear the answer, but he walked away again. I should have left then. I should have dropped my basket and gone home, but I didn't. 5 minutes passed. I got batteries and a lint roller and was looking at paper towels when I heard that sound again. Flip-flop, flip-flop. He came round the corner fast and stopped in front of me. The space near the back wall by cleaning supplies was open. He stood too close. "Sure, you can't just pay for it. Just a couple things, man. Help me out." His voice lost its politeness. It was clipped and annoyed. I said firmer, "I already told you no." He didn't move. He looked at his basket, then at me. "You've got an attitude or something?" he asked, eyes narrow. "What?" I blinked. "No, I'm just not paying for a stranger's stuff. Can you back up a little?" Then he slammed his basket on the ground. Everything fell out. A bag of chips popped open. Batteries rolled under the shelf. Deodorant bounced to my feet. "What's your problem, huh?" he snapped. "What the hell is your problem?" My pulse jumped. He was yelling now. People nearby looked over. I said carefully, "I don't have a problem. Please leave me alone." But he stepped closer. "No, you do. You think you're better than me. Is that it?" His voice was full of hate. I took a slow step back. I didn't want to make it worse. Every instinct told me something was wrong. He kept yelling, "What's your problem? What's your problem, huh?" Louder each time, like a broken record. I looked around. An older man near the front looked unsure. One teen girl peeked from the toy aisle. No one helped. "Back off," I said louder. "Just go." "Hey," a voice finally said. A store worker in a green apron ran over. He was young, thin, pale, and nervous. "You need to leave right now." The man looked angry. "I'm not doing anything. You're yelling at customers. I need you to leave." The man paused. I held my breath. Then, like a switch flipped, he smiled. "Fine," he said happily. He turned and walked a few steps, then stopped. Slowly, he took off his socks and flip-flops, one at a time. The socks looked dirty and wet. He threw them at me. They missed, but just barely. "Crazy bitch," he muttered. Then he walked out barefoot, leaving his things in silence behind. The air in the store changed when the door closed. It felt like everyone breathed out at once. "Are you okay?" the worker asked me. He looked shaken too. "Yeah," I said, though I wasn't. My hands shook. "Want me to call the cops?" I thought about it, but he was gone. "No, it's fine. I don't think he'll come back." I was wrong. I checked out a few minutes later. The cashier, an older woman with short grey hair, asked if I was okay. I nodded, but kept looking at the windows. The night outside looked darker, more scary. I hurried to my car, keys ready in my hand. My skin crawled with that old feeling of being watched. When I got in and locked the doors, I saw him across the parking lot. He stood barefoot on the curb under a street lamp, just standing there. Watching me, he didn't move. I backed out slowly and drove away. I tried not to show. I was scared. My hands held the wheel so tight, I thought they'd cramp. I drove around the block before going home to make sure I wasn't followed. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. I kept checking the peephole on my apartment door just in case. For the next few days, I didn't go back to the green spot. I started shopping at a bigger store across town instead. Even though I hated the crowd, at least I felt safer. About a week later, a friend who still went to the green spot told me a man had been banned for harassing customers. When she described him, I knew it was him. He came back a few days after that night asking people for money again. Someone finally called the cops. He ran before they arrived. They never caught him. The part that stays with me most, the thing that keeps me awake some nights, isn't the yelling or the thrown socks. It's the look in his eyes before he left. That strange, empty stare, like he wasn't really seeing me. Or maybe he was seeing too much. I haven't seen him since, but every time I walk into a store at night and hear footsteps behind me a little too fast, I remember him and keep moving.